All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a addendum version of the Jack Henke Show. We're kind of in our old time slot here in the mornings. Normally, you catch us in the evenings in prime time. We made it to prime time. That's right. Anyway, we have this morning. The reason we're doing this is for Cedarburg Reads 2023. Very exciting thing we do here at the library. And we have sort of going around, of course, Jack Henke, you know, and the Bulldog. And then Sarah Kelly, adult librarian here at the library, library director Linda Pershala down there in one of the cubes, and of course the guest of honor today, Wisconsin-based author Nickolas Butler, and author of Shotgun Lovesongs, our title for the year. So, ladies and gentlemen, chat amongst yourselves.
All right, I will start it off. So, Nick, we're super excited for you to come to our event on October 25th. We invite the whole community to come to it as well. It'll be at the Cedarburg Cultural Center. So that means we can have a cash bar at the beginning. So we're pretty excited about that. And we'll have music and a reception and announce the winners of our writing contest. So we're really pumped for this, and the community is as well. And I'm just curious, Nick, have you heard about Cedarburg? Are you familiar with our community?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, well, I lived for 10 years in Madison, Wisconsin. So that's not exactly southeastern Wisconsin, but it's close enough to have traveled to Milwaukee and the Milwaukee area a lot, especially in my 20s. And I'm very excited, especially kind of in the wake of everything that happened in COVID. I realized that a big part of my self-esteem and the way that I connect to people happens by doing these sort of events. My job is really, really solitary. So when I get out and I can talk to librarians and booksellers and readers, it really fills me up with the kind of positive energy I need to take into the solitary pursuit of just writing a book for 2 or 3 years. So nobody is more excited about this event than I am.
Yeah. And I noticed you follow up after us with Waaw Reads. They also, I had no idea they had selected Shotgun Lovesongs as well. So I was really surprised to see that. And I thought that was really cool because you got one right after the other.
We're glad you have your priorities straight. You got Cedarburg first.
They copied us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's really humbling to me too, because that book came out in 2014 and it means it's still finding readers, which means a lot to me, because the longer that I'm publishing, the more I realize it is really, really difficult to find any readers at all. There's so many wonderful books that get published every year. And most of the time a book goes out into the world and it's no reflection on the writing or the writer, but it just can't find an audience. It can't find purchase in the world. And so to think that this book, that I had no expectations for when I wrote it, is still finding an audience is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very cool. So I got a question. So for all of us English majors everywhere, how hard is it to be a writer from the Midwest?
Well, I think it's hard to be a writer anywhere.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, one thing that doesn't necessarily help as a Midwestern writer is you're just so far removed from the large media centers of America. And so that can make, I hate this word, but like the business of networking a lot more difficult. I can't even see my neighbors. We live so far away from each other, let alone like imagine going to a literary soiree or party in New York City, and making like literary connections that way. So I think that's one kind of challenge of being a Midwestern writer. But the kind of gift of being a Midwestern writer is I don't worry about any of the BS of like making, phony connections with people. I just focus on my work. and I don't have to worry about whether I'm invited to a cool party or not invited to a cool party, because there's no parties for me. So I just focus on my work, and I focus on my craft. And sometimes I write things that I don't get paid a lot of money for, but I do them because I care about my community, or I care about local journalism, or whatever it is. And I really like the way that my career is shaked out so far. I hope I can keep going.
Here's the dirty little secret about those cool parties, Nick. They're not terribly cool.
No. I imagine there's a healthy or maybe an unhealthy amount of like sweaty anxiety and desperation, and that doesn't really sound attractive to me.
Oh yeah, great fun all around.
Yeah.
Well, based on going off on that a little bit more, Nick, how can an unknown writer from the Midwest get discovered? How and the second part of the question would be self-publishing versus traditional publishing. Is there a recommendation that you have for that?
Okay, well, you asked two very good questions, but different questions. Okay, how does a writer from the Midwest get discovered? Well, I think people sometimes think that there's like a silver bullet or like a magic flip that gets switched. I think they're looking for sort of an easy answer, and there is no easy answer. The answer is you have to be willing to suffer a lot of rejection. You just have to keep going. You have to improve your craft. And the thing that ultimately leads to discovery is good writing. So, I mean, in some ways that's sort of, what's the word? That's sort of freeing, right? I mean, you don't have to focus on any of the other stuff. Just focus on your own work and keep after it and keep trying. And I used to keep an Excel spreadsheet on my computer of every short story and poem that I sent out into the world, when I submitted it, when it was rejected, how it was rejected. And that Excel spreadsheet was 99.5% full of rejections. But then over time, maybe you bring your percentage to like 95% rejection, and that feels pretty good. Actually, you can kind of notice it. Your other question was about self-publishing versus traditional publishing.
Yes, sir.
So when I work with a person who wants to publish a book, I think the most important question that I ask them is, what do you want from this project? Say you are a little bit later in your life. Maybe you're in your late 70s or 80s, and you want to publish your story, an autobiography, or maybe a collection of short stories. Doesn't really matter. You might not have 10 years of rejection to suffer, right? Yeah. That's just the reality of our human life cycles. So what I tell people is like, look, if you're in your late 70s, early 80s, and you want to publish a book, it could be that self-publishing is the right thing for you because you just have a smaller timeline. I think for most writers that I work with, I recommend that they shoot for the stars at first and try your best, and exhaust the best options first, and then start working your way down. And there's no shame in that either. Yeah. I think the thing that people sometimes don't think about is that just because you have a book finished doesn't mean that you should publish it right away. Mm-hmm. You might want to make sure that it is the very best product that you can do before you send it out into the world, because you can't get it back. If you publish a bad book, publishers are going to look at that, or agents, and be like, this person doesn't have any talent, and why would they help you later on? There's so many talented writers. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yes. Yeah.
It's really different. It's different writer to writer, and when I sit down with writers, I really try to ask them, well, where do you want to go? What are your goals? And that kind of informs how we move forward.
Okay. How did you start with Shotgun Lovesongs? That was your first one. So how did you how did you get that one published?
Well, I mean, it was depending on how you think about it, it was quite a long process. I mean, I've been writing since I was a teenager for my middle school newspaper and my high school newspaper. And then all through my 20s, I had terrible jobs. I never made any money. I was a meat packer, worked at a liquor store, all kinds of weird jobs like that. When I was...
It was all research, Nick. That was all research.
Yeah.
Well, kind of. Didn't feel like research when I was waking up at 3:45 to work at the Oscar Mayer plant, but
No.
When I was 20, in my late 20s, my wife and I became pregnant with our first child. We were on food stamps, and we were very close to bankruptcy and foreclosure. And I had a conversation with myself about what kind of dad and husband I wanted to be and what I was good at and what I wanted for my future. And the only thing I could think of that I was any good at was writing. So I started taking workshops, improved my craft kind of steadily, applied to grad school 1 year, got rejected. The next year I applied to grad school and got into the Iowa Writers Workshop.
Wow.
And when I was at the Iowa Writers Workshop, I began working on Shotgun Lovesongs. I had no expectations for what was going to happen with that book. I can remember when I handed it to my agent the final time before he went out and tried to sell it, I called my best friend from Iowa, a very talented novelist named Marcus Burke, and I said, I don't know what's going to happen. This thing could sell for $500 or it could sell for $500,000. We'll have to see. And the amazing thing is it was much more like the latter. It was a wonderful success story. It sold in like 10, 11 different foreign countries. The movie rights were optioned. But when I was working on it at Iowa, it seemed like kind of a harebrained idea. Like, I guess I'm just going to write about a bunch of people in rural Wisconsin, kind of at an interesting time in their lives where people are getting married or divorced. And, I think I got a little bit lucky. I mean, I worked hard on it. I know that, but some of it's about cosmic timing, I guess.
Yeah. Positioned yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. It seemed like the independent booksellers really helped propel that.
Absolutely.
We have an author, Leslie Kagan, who lives in Cedarburg, and her books have been on the New York Times bestseller list as well. And she said one of her first books, the way it took off was from the independent booksellers who really reviewed it, promoted it, and really created the trajectory for it.
Yeah.
Is that what you kind of experienced too?
Well, in fairness, I've never made the New York Times bestselling list. I wish I had. I've gotten close at times, but I've never hit it.
Day's not over, Nick.
Day's not over.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, independent booksellers were hugely instrumental in Shotgun Lovesong's success. No doubt about it. Mm-hmm. Especially when you are a first-time novelist, nobody knows who you are. So you really need them to be hand selling your book to their customers, and because books are expensive, frankly, and for some people they might only if you're a real book person, you might lose track of this. But for most people in the world, buying one book in a year or buying 2 or 3 or 4 books in a year is a big, big deal, right? Mm-hmm. So taking a chance on a writer that you know nothing about is a risk. And I was super fortunate. My publisher at the time, St. Martin, sent me on what they called like a walking tour, where basically I would drive around the Midwest with my trunk full of advanced readers' copies of Shotgun Lovesongs. I'd introduce myself, hopefully have time to go out for a beer or lunch with the bookseller. And they absolutely, made my career in a lot of ways.
Nice.
The book itself, Nickolas, do you prefer Nick or Nickolas?
Nick is fine. I put Nickolas on the book because that's what my mom named me, but everybody just calls me Nick. So
I have a question about the story. A comment first. You write women. This is a man talking, but you write women very well, in my opinion. Of course, that's a man's perspective of men. But do you get feedback from women on the women characters you write? And if you're doing them justice or no?
I get a lot of feedback from my wife.
Okay, that's a pretty important reader.
Yeah, for sure. My wife is an important early reader. I will hand her the draft, and it's not, she never says like we've been together since we were kids, basically. So I'm never going to hear from my wife, wow, you wrote that female character well. Like that's not, that's never going to happen. But she will say, well, a woman just wouldn't think that way about X or Y. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, okay, all right, fair enough. And well, what would be appropriate here? And then she'll sort of help me vector in on whatever. I don't really think that writing men or writing women is so very different. Like in the case of Beth in Shotgun Lovesongs, Beth is a stay-at-home mom, and my primary like professional title might be novelist, but I'm a stay-at-home dad. So there's a huge amount of my time that's committed to domestic sort of errands. I do, like, people ask me sometimes like, well, what is it like to be a novelist? And I'll tell them laundry. It's a huge amount of laundry. And I'm not joking. Like we have 2 kids, like they produce a ton of laundry. It feels like sometimes that's all that I do, or all that I do is laundry punctuated by moments of driving them around the Chippewa Valley for various practices or whatever. And when you're doing that, you're thinking about the things that you could otherwise be doing, right? And I think that's what part of Beth's interior life is. Like she has committed to living this life, but there are certainly alternate tracks where she could have lived a different life. And so I was sort of tapping into, my own life when I imagined her.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. There's so many lines of your book I love. There's some of them most simple. I read through them and I get past and go, wait a minute, that was freaking awesome. That was great. So I'm just a huge fan. I love just a simple line like this. She's talking about Wisconsin, Minnesota, Beth, and she says, and though the 2 states embrace each other along the Mississippi in St. Croix. I mean, the 2 states embracing each other. The visual is just, it's such a, it's perfect. I love that.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I don't think about embracing Minnesota very much when the Vikings are like 13-3 the way they were last year.
Yes.
No, look, after Shotgun Lovesongs sold, before it was published, we could have moved anywhere in the world. We were living at that time in St. Paul, Minnesota, because my wife had a job at a law firm there. We could have moved anywhere in the world, and we considered it because it was a pretty terrible winter, right? One of those winters that makes you re-examine why exactly you are living in the upper Midwest. But both my parents live in Eau Claire. Both of Regina's parents live in Eau Claire. Many of my childhood friends are here, and I love living here. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I feel so lucky to live where I do, to be part of this community. So writing little throwaway lines like that, it's just part of my life. It's not an act. I love this part of the world.
Cool.
We used to call them our best kept secret, and I'm always fearful it's going to get out.
I know. Trust me. When we first moved back to Eau Claire in 2013, I was a little defensive of it because I'd lived in Iowa City for a while, and many of my friends were from very I don't know, attractive urban centers in America. And I thought, God, and I am moving back to Eau Claire, and now I don't tell anyone about Eau Claire, really. Like, I don't want anybody else moving here, Stay away. It's terrible here.
There you go.
Well, yeah, you and a certain other person named Michael Perry like that area, and it just seems like it's been an incubator almost for writing and music. And
definitely music. Wow.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and Mike is a good friend. He's way busier than I am. He's relentlessly out there, sort of touring, so we don't hang out as much as I'd like. But every now and again, I'll come over to the house for coffee and talk about the work of writing and the politics of writing and all that sort of stuff. And No, Eau Claire is a fun community to live in right now. Let me take that back. Eau Claire is a dismal, sad community to live in. There's nothing happening here.
Closed for business. So Claire.
Yeah.
All right, good to know. We had our writers group last night through our library here, and you talked about the business and life of writing, and that comes up quite a bit. We meet once a month, first Wednesday of the month, and I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't ask what your process is like, your day to day. Where you're at now. I mean, do you shoot for like a page a day or a word count a day, or what do you see as a successful, thing, or is it just whenever you can steal it? Whenever you can get that time.
Yeah, I don't have a process, and part of that is informed by the fact that we have a 14-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl. So like
that would do it.
I don't know. I can shoot for a page a day or two pages a day, but I don't really worry about that. Like right now, when I'm done with this interview, I need to scramble to go get some groceries, and then I need to start preparing dinner because we're having dinner guests. I need to keep the laundry going. I need to run the vacuum. Like,
oh, you can fit some literary genius between this.
Yeah.
Come on,
today, nothing is going to happen. That is, I could lie to you. I could tell you that I'm going to a magical hut in the forest where I'm going to churn out 20 pages of solid gold American literature, but that'd be BS. So I just kind of let it ride. I mean, ultimately when I get to the end of my life, like, the important thing to me is whether my kids have a good relationship with me, and if my wife is proud of me, and if I've been a good friend and brother and son. The writing thing is the next most important thing in my life, but it is the next most important thing. It's not the first most important thing. Yeah. So all just to say, I've never really had a process. I think about an idea and I think about an idea until I can't really handle it anymore. And I need to sit down at the computer. And at that point, the ideas are very well articulated inside my head. And it's just a matter of finding the time to sit down and get it out. But I don't, like, one of my least favorite things is sitting at the computer and not typing. I would way rather spend time walking, mowing the lawn, doing dishes, thinking about a plot and the characters. And then when I am absolutely ready, I sit down and I do the work. But
that's cool. Yeah.
I think that there's, like, especially in the upper Midwest, there's this sort of Protestant work ethic that we can lay over art, like, you got to write every day. You got to write a page a day. You got to write at least a page a day. Well, this is art. This isn't, I'm not building a barn. So I don't really worry about that.
It's clearly worked. You got 4 novels under your belt now. That's pretty amazing. And a short story collection. So yeah, whatever you're doing is clearly working out for you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, we have all of your titles at the library.
Thank you.
And all the copies of Shotgun have just been going out like crazy. So it's been really good. But I do have to say, Nickolas, I've had some older women come up to me who have read the book. Yeah. And one of their first comments is, did he have to use so much swearing in the book? So I want to ask you.
Did you say F yeah?
Yeah, that's right. So if you had to defend the 4-letter words in the book to your grandmother, for example, and say, so give me some ammunition to use when I have to defend to these older library patrons why there's profanity in the book. What should I tell them?
Well, first off, using my grandma as an example is you didn't know her, but
that's where you got it from.
She taught me everything I know about swearing.
Okay.
So when I think about that book, I don't really remember a lot of swearing. I remember, it's been 10 years now or whatever, but I know there's some swearing, but I swear. I mean, are you saying you don't swear? Are we? Am I? I don't really understand. Like, once I guess my most recent novel, Godspeed's about a crew of construction guys, and somebody said, God, there's a lot of swearing in there. And I was like, have you ever been around a construction crew?
Yeah.
If you hadn't, it would have seemed disingenuous.
I mean, what do you think those guys are? I mean, everything they say is punctuated by a F-bomb. In fact, I can't swear here, can I?
Oh,
Yeah,
fire away.
sure.
No, we
Yeah,
love that.
yes,
No, no.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So back in 2013, 2014, when we moved back to Eau Claire, we commenced building a house. And I was here on the job site every day watching him build the house. And there was a guy on the crew, I shit you not, who every single time I interacted with him, no matter what I asked him, he would say, fuck yeah. Like, looks like you're making pretty good progress on the roof. Fuck yeah. Jesus, it's cold today, isn't it? Fuck yeah. Like, every single time. I didn't make that up. I didn't make him up as a character.
Right.
I have no idea what you're supposed to tell these grandmothers. I
will just say that it's part of the vernacular. It's just part of the story. It's part of the character.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If they don't like the book, they don't have to, they don't have to keep reading.
Just skip over those words. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you should see what they're reading these steamy romance novels. So that's
right.
There's stuff in those too.
They can read Little Faith. I don't know that there's more than like 3 swear words in my novel Little Faith. It's a much different book and maybe more to their liking.
I do have a Sharpie upstairs. I can start redacting things.
There you go. No. We're not going to get into public libraries redacting anything.
No, you're absolutely right. That's actually being banned book season. A topic we're definitely on top of for sure. So there we go.
Yeah. But, do you have a favorite banned book?
Well, let me think about that. I don't even really follow what's. The whole notion of banned books, just so stupid. It's so stupid. It's so cosmically and intellectually stupid. I don't even know where to begin. The very premise of it offends me, just so deeply that I don't even really know what to say. I mean, I could say like Catcher in the Rye is a book that was important to me. Many of Sherman, I wrote my senior thesis on Sherman Alexie when I was at UW-Madison. I think like pretty much all his books have been banned. I don't know.
It's good for your career. I mean, they sell like hotcakes once you get banned.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful, it's an awesome career move.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Rough stuff.
Nick, is there an author that you wish more people knew about, or you'd say you should read this person?
Well, I don't know if she needs any of my help, but one kind of contemporary of mine is Renee Denfeld. She's a Portland, Oregon-based writer. She writes very good kind of literary, I don't know if I'd say thriller, but they have a thrill. Each book has kind of a thriller element to it. She's wonderful. I think about my friend Chris Dombrowski, who's written 2 marvelous nonfiction books that have to do with fishing. I think about my friend John Larison out in Oregon, hell of a good writer. I mean, the longer that you're in writing, one thing that is wonderful for your ego in a very healthy way is you realize that there are so many good writers that people don't know of. And sometimes I'll be at a conference or something and you brush elbows with somebody who maybe operates in a genre that I don't read so very much, like fantasy or romance or whatever it is.
Sure.
And you realize that person has sold millions and millions of copies, and I've never heard of them. So I would send people to check out Renee Denfeld, I think.
Excellent. Cool.
Yeah, we're all going to look her up now.
Oh, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good to know.
Well, we're coming up on 9 o'clock here, and I know you have a few things to do there, Nick. So that's cool. Anybody have any final comments or questions for Nick before we welcome him here to in person at the end of the month? But
Yeah, I just want to say we're really looking forward to it. You'll have a lovely stay at the Washington House Inn that evening. It's a very, very nice place. So we're just, excited to have you to come to Cedarburg.
Absolutely.
I'm really excited about it too. And I appreciate the invitation. As I said, it means a lot to me, especially after everything that happened with COVID. I'm happy about hitting the road again, and I'm grateful that people are still reading Shotgun Lovesongs. So
Awesome.
yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for joining us this morning. This will be available on demand, obviously, as our shows always are. And once again, Shotgun Lovesongs, and get your entries in before, what is that, midnight Sunday?
Right.
Yeah.
Can we use expletives in our entries?
Yes.
My Sharpie's ready.
Are the judges old ladies?
Yes.
Fuck yeah! Come on, Linda. Say it. Fuck yeah!
Oh, you're just tempting me, Jack.
Linda wants to change one word, and it ain't the F-bomb. She wants to change. Now, F you is what she said.
It's all up here.
Fun never ends here at the Jack Henke Show. Join us tonight. We'll be on the air tonight at 7 p.m. Thanks again to Nickolas Butler and everybody in this room. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We are